Derrick Van Orden, Congressman from Wisconsin. He is, of course, a SEAL, and he is, of course, not in the United States right now. He's where I'm not surprised to find him in Israel. Good morning, Congressman. Good to have you on.
Good morning, Hugh. It's nice to be here.
Now, you'll be there all week, so you're counting on the speakership not getting to an answer before the end of the week.
I really don't think so, unfortunately. We've got 9 candidates now, all of which would be outstanding speakers. I know all of the folks personally. I've known them, for some of them for 9 months since I got into Congress, but others I know for several years. And any of those folks will make a fine speaker.
Now, Congressman, do you agree with me that the combat vets are more serious about this stuff than, say, the knucklehead caucus of Matt Gaetz and Nancy Mason, the rest of the silly people?
Well, General Jack Bergman is a combat veteran. He's a veteran of the Vietnam War. He's the
there you go.
He's the highest ranking military officer ever to be elected to Congress. He's a very serious person. None of the folks that have served in Afghanistan and Iraq are in the speaker's race, and I think that's okay too. I mean, to me personally, I don't think it should be a prerequisite to serve in the military, to serve in Congress, but I tell you what, it certainly gives us a different worldview. And when we get together as veterans, you are correct. We take things very seriously because we understand from direct personal experience the ramifications of poor policymaking. And we do need a bit more of that in Congress.
You know, I do note that I have not seen a single veteran of the Long War say anything stupid. Like, look, Matt Gaetz doesn't deserve the term stupid. That's unfair to stupid people. But I just want to talk with you about why you're in Israel, because, again, you're serious. What took you to Israel?
Well, Jews are being slaughtered at a level that they haven't since the Holocaust. And we've got to remember that the time is of the essence here. Yesterday, I went to some of the places in the South, Berry and these other kibbutzim that you've been seeing in the news. The slaughter of the I call them children because our youngest child is 25 at that rave. We went into the kibbutz, into the homes, talked to the people that have been witnessing this directly. I spoke to the man that recovered personally the beheaded infants. I spoke to the man who personally recovered women that were handcuffed nude that had been raped repeatedly and then murdered. I spoke to a grandfather, a 70-year-old grandfather yesterday who ran to the sound of the guns. He only had a pistol on him. He shot a terrorist, took the rifle, and then they defended that kibbutzim and his grandchildren for 16 hours, him and one other person. I spoke to another man who 2 of his sons who were not in the army heard the gunfight. They took their pistols and assaulted the terrorists to try to defend them. The kibbutzim, both of them were killed, and one of them was so badly burnt that they had to use the DNA of his identical twin to identify the body. So what's taking place here now is so incredibly horrific. And if you think proportionality, if what took place in the amount of casualties that Israel has sustained, if that happened in the United States because of the difference in our population, that would have been 50,000 Americans killed, and not by the planes crashing, which is absolutely horrible. But think about people intentionally targeting, breaking into homes, raping, murdering, stabbing babies repeatedly, and again and again and again and again. I sat with a guy yesterday who both of his parents were Holocaust survivors and were 30 meters away from his house where his mother and father were slaughtered like animals. And,
you know, Congressman, there's a story this morning in the Telegraph that the butchers were high on captagon, which is, of course, at the center of the new novel Code Red. And captagon is manufactured primarily in Syria. It's the poor man's cocaine. These butchers were high as a kite and just killing everything that moved. But still the savagery assaults the senses, and the world wants to turn the page, and I'm glad you're not letting them turn the page, because they can't turn the page from what these savages did, and savage is the only word I can come up with.
The other word is beast that you could think of. And listen, we cannot allow the Holocaust to happen again. There's people that deny the Holocaust took place, and there's people that are denying that this took place, or that they're trying to equivocate it. And unfortunately, many of them are in the Democrat Party in the House of Representatives right now as we speak, which is shameful. I just came from the Holocaust Museum here. here in Jerusalem. I wanted to go there to see that so that, again, I could reinforce the historical perspective of what's taking place here. And the most powerful part of that memorial museum is the Children's Museum. You walk into this chamber where there are thousands and thousands of candles that are reflecting on hundreds and hundreds of mirrors. And so you see into the distance because of the illusion that's created there. And it's an endless series of these points of light. And they read the names of the identified children that were slaughtered in the Holocaust repeatedly. It's the most powerful memorial I think I've ever been into in my life. And we got to remember, there's still 30 children. There's still 30 children that these savages abducted and took into Gaza right now.
Now,
There's
Congressman,
over
I
200
want...
Israelis that are still right now. Go ahead.
And there are 20 Americans. I don't even know the names of the Americans.
Right.
Why do we not know the names of the Americans? I pray for all 250 hostages, but ought we not to know the names of the Americans at least?
I would hope so. But Hugh, let's be very, very clear and brutally honest. The Biden administration set a precedence by abandoning thousands of American citizens and our allies to terrorists in Afghanistan with virtually no follow-through. Private citizens wound up going over to Afghanistan to try to rescue American citizens. I flew over and wound up in the Middle East trying to rescue American citizens. I helped I helped to process those that were pulled out. But so the Biden administration set this precedence. If you were Hamas and you saw that, you would say, well, is the United States going to actually put their best foot forward to get these people back? Because they didn't in Afghanistan. That emboldened Putin. I mean, to invade Ukraine, because he saw if the Biden administration is going to abandon American citizens, what are they going to do about Ukraine? So
now, Congressman,
go ahead.
I had former President Trump's last national security advisor on Friday, Ambassador Robert O'Brien. Very good, very effective, and a hostage negotiator. He said bluntly, Iran invaded Israel on 10/7. Iran invaded Israel. They use puppets. They use the Hamas. They use Hezbollah. They use the Houthis. But it's Iran. Do you agree with his assessment?
Yes. Iran invaded. They're responsible for the invasion of Israel right now. Hamas is just an extension, as is Islamic Jihad, as is ISIS, quite frankly, as are Al-Shabaab. All these organizations are being funded by and supported by Iran. That's irrefutable. Here is what is maddening here. The United States, starting under President Obama and now following up with President Biden, have given at one point hundreds of millions, now billions of dollars to Iran. And to think for a moment that giving $100 million to Hamas is appropriate is just unfathomable. And let me put this into a way that people can understand this. When we were involved in World War II, at no time do I think the British cabinet said, we need to make sure that we get humanitarian aid to the German people. That conversation didn't take place. It simply didn't. I had a reporter from the BBC, I talked to him this morning, and he was trying to equivocate what's taking place in Gaza. And I explained to him that everything that takes place in Gaza now, everything that takes place in Israel now is Hamas's fault and it's Iran's fault. And he looked at me with that, British BBC kind of smug look in his face. And I said, do you think that Winston Churchill should be held accountable for all of the casualties that were sustained by the Germans bombing London during the Blitz? Because that's what took place here. Germany started World War II. Hamas started this war. So to blame Israel for what's taking place in Gaza right now and in Israel itself is just a foolish statement. It doesn't make any sense historically. It makes no sense practically. It makes no sense logically. And it's a way to obfuscate. It's a way for people to exercise subtle anti-Semitism. And I simply will not stand for that.
Good for you, Congressman. And I tell people proportionality does not mean what reporters think it means. Proportionality is one must take into account the damage and loss of civilian life as one measures military objectives. And the military objectives can overweigh a lot of civilian casualties, but you got to at least measure the impact. And Israel always does that. I want to ask you about the northern front, Congressman, because Hezbollah has 150,000 missiles. Is Israel justified, in your view, at preemptively striking those missiles?
Well, that's a very good question, Hugh. And right now, I'm not prepared to answer that. I would say initially, absolutely. If those missiles are pointed at Israel, which they are, and they can identify them and destroy them, that would be a good thing. The problem is if you're trying to open up a two-front war, which Israel should be able to handle, if they're prepared for that, then the answer is yes. If they're not prepared to fight a two-front war, then the answer is no. That's why.
And then my last question: you're a SEAL. I assume there are hostage rescues in your background. How difficult will this mission be to get victory in Hamas, destroy Hamas, victory in Gaza, and rescues hostages at the same time? It seems to me almost impossible.
I was going to use the term nearly impossible, Hugh, and it's tragic. I want to be real clear with everybody because I'm sure the left-wing press will get a hold of this stuff. I have multiple combat tours on the ground, and war is horrible and it's horrific, and I wish we didn't have it, but we do. And the Jewish people have been attacked for time immemorial, and I do believe now is a time for a reckoning, because for too long, Iran, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, all these other organizations have been supported, unfortunately, by the United States, by our tax dollars. And I got to go back to the state of Wisconsin and explain to a dairy farmer that's milking 3 times a day why his tax dollars are paying to attack Israel.
That's a very good way to conclude this. Congressman Van Orden, it is always great to talk to you. I love the seriousness. I wish we had that seriousness in the speakership. They find someone, maybe it's General Burgum, maybe it's anybody else who's actually knows what they're talking about when they talk about war. Thank you, Congressman Van Orden from Wisconsin.